Happy Blockheads Wednesday, everybody. This week is block 4 of group 2 of Blockheads 5. And our guest designer this week is Barb of Me and My Sister's Designs. And she has given us a really fun design called Morning Star. It's a lovely bordered star with these nice little bordered square units in the corners and then flying geese. So pretty straightforward assembly. So let's start diving into the pattern. I've got my pieces cut out here. I'm making the 6-inch block. So I've been using these measurements for mine. So I've got my larger squares and my smaller squares here. These are going to be for my flying geese. We're going to do the 4 at a time, no waste flying geese method like we usually do. And if you prefer to do stitch and flip, I'll put the cutting instructions for those in the blog post. And the link to the blog post will be in the video description. And then over here I have my A squares and then my B and C rectangles for making these little corner units. And then here's my center square for H. Okay, the first step is to make these bordered squares for the corner units. So let me do that first. Okay, I've finished making my little bordered corner units and I have pressed out towards the rectangles. So those are trimmed, done and trimmed to 2.5 inches because I'm making the 6-inch block. If you're making the 12-inch block, they'll be trimmed to 4.5 inches. And now I'm ready to set those aside and make my flying geese. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to use the 4 at a time no waste method for making our flying geese. So I'll take 2 of the smaller squares and line them up onto my larger square here, and also a scant 1/4 inch seam on either side of what would be a marked line from point to point. And press those out, trim them, and do it again. So let's make these flying geese and get them trimmed up. Okay, my flying geese are all assembled and trimmed per the pattern instructions. Just a reminder that with this pattern, with the 4 at a time no waste flying geese, I've written the cutting instructions so that your flying geese will end up a little bit oversized and you'll have room to trim down. So you don't need to oversize your cutting. You can just cut as instructed on the pattern and you'll have some room to trim these down to size. So the next step is step 4. We're going to join our flying geese together to make a little chevron unit, and then we can start assembling our block. Another tip for joining flying geese is to sew with the point right side up. So instead of sewing along this way where my kind of I don't have a seam here. I want to sew on this side so that I can just make sure that I don't lose my point. So my flying geese are trimmed up just right. So I should definitely have my 1/4 inch seam here. But if ever you are not quite sure that you're gonna, be able to keep your point in your flying geese, if you sew with this seam facing up, then as you get to this point, you can kind of move your little unit over just a tad so that your needle goes just to the right of that intersection of the seam, and then you'll make sure that you have your point maintained. Okay, I got my double flying geese units, my little chevron units pieced. I pressed down towards the bottom flying geese where there's less bulk at this point here, so it made more sense to press these down. And then I trimmed them up according to the pattern, and they didn't require a lot of trimming, just a little bit of cleaning up. So now I'm ready to start assembling my blocks. So what I'm going to do is as I assemble the rows together, I'm going to press my corner unit seams out. So I'm going to press the seam toward this rectangle. And then I'm going to press on the center row, I'm going to press the seam towards the center square. Okay, here it is, my finished block. I like to press my rows open, so that's what I did when I assembled my my block together. And I've got it all trimmed up to 6.5 inches, so it'll finish at 6 inches when it's in my quilt or whatever I decide to make with it. And I managed to get my Americana version done at the same time, so that's exciting. Thank you so much, Barb, for a really cute block. I think there are so many possibilities with this Morningstar block. I could see a whole quilt made out of these. So lots of design opportunities here. Don't forget to join our Facebook group and post your finished blocks in our group. We want to see your version of Morningstar. Thanks again for joining us. Hope you had fun sewing this week's block, and we'll see you next week.